Oh boy, this is not the book that I thought I was going to be talking about this month, but I'm happy that it is because it means finally a book lived up to the hype. Welcome to Book of the Month, where I go into a bit more detail about the best thing I read last month. This book of the month is going to be Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. Did I think a sci-fi book would be book of the month? Absolutely not. But this gives me hope because I love watching sci-fi. I grew up on sci-fi, but I haven't had that many books live up to good sci-fi TV so far, and this gives me hope. So Dark Matter by Blake Crouch is it's an exploration on several things. So the book explores quantum physics, right? But it also explores identity and what makes you you and the choices you make and how this affect your life. It's amazing. It's short. It packs a punch. The pacing is phenomenal. It's an Apple TV show now, which I haven't seen because I don't have Apple TV. But if you are so inclined and you like to read things and then watch them, or vice versa, that is out there. So this is going to be pretty much spoiler free. There's some stuff that's going to sound like a spoiler, but if you just look at the cover of the television series, you'll understand it's not really a spoiler. So we are following our protagonist, Jason Dessen. He's a professor. He could have been a really great scientist, but he decided to choose family life. He's madly in love with his wife, and she's an artist, and they have a son, Charlie. And basically, one day, Jason gets knocked out, and this guy's got him at gunpoint, strips him naked, takes him to a warehouse. And next thing you know, he wakes up in a world where everything has changed. He is not married to his wife, he does not have a son, and he actually did pursue his science career and is a famed physicist. So the book is basically him trying to figure out who did that to him, how are these things happening that are happening, does anybody know what's going on, and how does he get back to Daniela, his wife, in his world. And it just spirals from there, and this book is a doozy in the best possible way. Plot wise, I feel like that's all I can really say without giving too much away. So the cover of the Apple series, I will put it here so that you can see what I mean by you can kind of figure out some of what happens just from that. Safe to say, based from that, Jason is going to run into alternate versions of himself. He is in a different reality after he gets abducted, and he's trying to get back to his reality. The genius thing about using this alternate reality as the main part of the plot is you can address so many things just from that, how each and every decision affects your reality, how it changes you as a person, leads you down an entirely different path. He also examines what makes you you and how you decide what you want. It also, to me, touches on having an understanding when you run into other people that they are who they are because of the sequence of their past history and how they became who they are. And I don't know, it's really fascinating. It's super interesting. It's definitely very concept driven. If you like deep, rich character building, that is not so much here, but I'm like that and I didn't mind at all. Like, I was attached to Jason, and I was as attached as I needed to be to Daniela, his wife. And there are not many characters in this book that are actually there for more than a hot second. So those are the main two focuses, really. And I was just so taken by the concept that I didn't need any more with the character building. It was good where it was at, and I already had enough that was on my mind. The other thing this addresses is we are capable of anything. You never know what version of you would have ended up as if you had made different choices in your past, and circumstances and life events can alter how you approach things. Basically, Jason runs into some pretty nasty versions of himself. And it's valid. I think back to things that I thought in the past before I was exposed to more in the world, and I hate it. There are very ugly versions of me from my past, and that's true for a lot of people. That's true for a lot of people in the present. And this book is just such a really fascinating, it's like a character study on humans as a whole and how they evolve mentally. And tying that in as like a speculative science thriller that's fast paced is genius. Absolute genius. And I don't really like tying creatives in with other more famous creatives for comparison because like everybody's doing their own thing. But in case this is helpful for people deciding if they want to read this or not, I have seen people comment on reviews of this book or interviews with Blake Crouch saying that reading this book felt like they were watching a Christopher Nolan movie. And that's pretty accurate, yeah. I think this book is good for most people. I guess if you don't really like thinking when you're reading a book, like if you're into really cozy books and you just want to relax and not think about things too deep at all, then this is not the right read for you. But it is not for sci-fi people only, that's for sure. There's been plenty of people I've seen that don't like sci-fi that really love this book. And I'm sure it's the same for the show. Like, it's not sci-fi people watching that show. It's people that like the alternate reality thriller side of it, I think, that are super attached to it. And that's definitely more heavily the vibe. So one cool thing that Blake Crouch talked about when he did an interview at a library about Dark Matters before it even came out is the revelation that came to him when he was at a bar with his friends hanging out talking about writing, that you can write about a book in order to explore something that makes you curious, changed everything for him. I can't remember if he said it was Wayward Pines or Dark Matter that was the first book where he did that. I feel like it was Wayward Pines because he said that book, writing that book, was like the best writing experience he's ever had, and he loved it so much. I think that's awesome. I wish more people did that, and I wish more people put in the work and research to do that well. Like I feel like there are authors that have written about way more intense topics than quantum physics, which makes quantum physics sound like not a big deal, and they have not done the appropriate research to back it up, and that's always a little bit frustrating. There have been I've seen videos where people say there were scientific concepts that they couldn't quite fully grasp, they didn't quite make sense on paper, and reading this book broke it down in a way that made it finally click for them. And I feel like if you can dumb something down for your audience to make them understand a new idea that is not easily understandable, like, honestly, kudos to you. That's pretty amazing. So I appreciate him for that big time. I love how much this man loves books. Like, he was gushing when he gave this interview at this library. He was talking about how that library is where he first discovered Lord of the Rings and all of these other classics, and how seeing his book on a library shelf was a bigger moment for him than seeing it in bookstores, because libraries are sacred. So I just love when an author really loves books that much, which sounds silly, but I feel like some of them do just geek out a bit more and have like a deeper connection to them. I don't know. It's probably also just about how he talks about them rather than the fact that he does talk about them, but I find this man to be very endearing when you watch his interviews. I should probably also add that, did this book make me cry? I believe it did. Yeah, I think I teared up at the end, because the end is a lot. Like, if you really sit and think about how much he layered into one scene at the end, it was a lot. It was not heavy. I mean, oh, it's frustrating that I can't talk about it. It's just, he keeps going back to what makes you, like truly, truly to the core, you. And what led you there? What decisions took you there? What patterns took you there? What relationships took you there? And where do you go from the present? And what do you want? What is your number one priority? What is, at the end of the day, if you were going to die tomorrow, what matters more than anything in the world to you? And it's just super interesting. It is bizarre reading a book that is so heavily science and existential all at once. I love it. I am pretty obsessed with this book. I'm so happy I read it. I cannot wait to read his other books. I'm really hoping that Blake Crouch turns out to be my author this year, where I just keep picking up more and more books by them. Obviously, he has interesting ideas. His books are approachable. Honestly, cross your fingers for me, because I really want this to be an author that I can get super attached to. I recommend this book for literally everybody. It's amazing. I hope to watch the show someday, although I'm sure I won't like it as much as the book, but you never know. Blake Crouch did an epic job on this book, and I am so pumped to listen to Recursion. By the way, I did the audiobook for this. I liked the audiobook quite a lot. I'm torn because I'm on a super tight budget right now, so I can't really just be buying up all the Blake Crouch books. I want to read one physically because I know he has really interesting formatting. He splits things up and has a lot of singular lines rather than full paragraphs, which is, divisive, of course. Some people can't stand it. I think it works really well with how his books read, at least Dark Matter. And I would like to experience that, but Recursion is free on Libby and it's sitting there. So I'm going to listen to that. But hopefully I love Recursion and then I can find a really cheap used copy of one of his other books, maybe Wayward Pines. If you've watched the show, let me know if it's good. And if you have any recommendations for next books of his to dive into, please drop them in the comments because I have a couple videos saved on Blake Crouch books and where to start, what order to read them in, all that. But nothing's better than just hearing from other people on YouTube what they think. But that's all I've got for this week. I'll see you guys in the next video.